The first San Francisco Bay Area DOR was actually held in San Bruno at the site of the Tan Foran Shopping Center. Of course, that was on February 19th, 1979. And of course, Tan Foran was significant for our community since that was kind of the racetrack where the first stop basically for San Francisco residents to go to the camps. So, and our keynote speaker that year was Min Yasui. We also had performances by Janice Mirakitani. It brought together multi-generations of Japanese Americans who for the first time confronted the legacy of internment. So it was really a spark plug for the subsequent redress movement that, of course, happened in the 80s. After 9/11, and within our community, the activists, of course, who worked for redress for our community saw the relevance of defending Muslim Americans who were put in kind of a very similar situation that, of course, the Issei were put in to at the outbreak of World War II. They were being demonized, they were being threatened, they were being discriminated against. And once again, it goes to tell you that despite the gains that our community gained through redress, many of the lessons were not being learned. So that was what kind of energized, I believe, our community to rally behind Muslim Americans. Yes, as of course, the internees from the concentration camps of World War II age and they pass away, it's very incumbent for the Day of Remembrance to remember their sacrifices and injustices that were put upon them by the government. And I think it's very important, particularly for the younger generation, to remember the lessons that were learned by the unjust incarceration of our community. This year's keynote speaker is Mr. John Osaki, who is the executive director of the Japanese Community Youth Council. And of course, he's also a renowned filmmaker. He recently filmed a production called Reparations, which talked about the importance of Black reparations. And I think in our community, we've come to realize the parallels between the Black American experience and our community's experience in the forms of the need for reparations. So the Clifford Iowetta Award highlights every year an activist in our community who has shown devotion and also great vision in fighting for human rights and civil rights for our community, as well as for all Americans. Dr. Clifford Iowetta, who was a San Francisco pediatrician, who was very active in various JA activist movements throughout his career. This year, we're very proud to award the Clifford Iowetta Award to Karen Kai and Robert Ruskey. Of course, Robert Ruskey unfortunately passed away last year, but of course, they were both on the Coriolis team, and they have a long history of activism in support of our community. Of course, in keeping with our theme, no one is free until we are all free, 80 years after EO 9066. And this idea of having to support Black reparations in light of our own community's experience, part of our call of action is, in fact, to support HR 40 and other actually Black reparations movements throughout the city as well as throughout the state. Another call to action is the unfinished business for redress and reparations for Japanese Latin Americans. And this in particular hits home close to me, since I'm actually a descendant of Japanese Latin Americans. My mother was actually a Peruvian Japanese who was essentially kidnapped and renditioned to the United States. She and her family spent her years in Crystal City, Texas at the Department of Justice camp. And although those who are in the WRA camps were able to gain reparations, unfortunately, those who were in the DOJ camps, particularly the Peruvians and other South Americans, have not yet gained reparations. But we're very happy to have performances by Anthony Brown, Lauren Ito, and Jerry Waki. Lauren will be performing a poem in honor of the memory of Janice Mirakitani.